Here's Worcester. It's February the 13th, 2018, and this is 508, the show about Worcester. Today we're talking about homelessness, Brent Crude, and game analysis. I'm Mike Benedetti. This is Brendan Melican.
Coming in shortly.
Hi, Brendan. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. And our special guest today is Christian Holden. Hi, Christian.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. Christian is an educator, professional gambler, and Worcester rock legend. We are broadcasting on Worcester's Unity Radio, 0.0000001 gigawatts of power on 102.9 FM, cablecasting on WCCA TV 194, and podcasting at pieandcoffee.org. Our call-in number is 508-471-5265, and a special shout-out today to the mighty Hank Stoltz, who is engineering today's show. Thank you, Hank.
Christian, we just met a minute ago in the hallway. How do you prioritize your list of titles? Is it educator, musician, gambler, musician, educator? I just want to make sure I have context down so as conversation rolls through.
I guess I should do it. I could do it in a couple ways. I could do it in terms of like what I am known for or what occupies the most of my time. I guess educator would end up in the end as it takes up the least amount of my time. But then it's a close race between professional gambler and professional musician, as I'm most known for being a professional musician, but I spend probably more of my time recently being a professional gambler. So I guess it's a tie.
That is exactly the answer I was hoping for. I'm extremely excited that I asked it.
That is amazing. You know, before we talk about things like rock and roll and making big money at the card table and teaching school or something, I want to talk about something even sexier, the Worcester City Council agenda. This week's Worcester City Council agenda is pretty light. It's been pretty light for like the last 2 months. I do not know what is going on with the Worcester City Council. But I want to read.
Apparently, neither do they, Mike.
They know exactly what's going on, which is not a huge amount. But you know what? God bless them. Like whatever they need to get done, I guess. I wanted to read off a list of what they're talking about tonight because some of it is connected to topics that we are interested in on this program. There are a couple of items on the agenda asking the manager to step up our existing efforts on fighting opioid abuse. And there are a couple of items asking that the city align itself with existing efforts to fight human trafficking, such as draft legislation from the Central Mass Freedom Coalition, and also to give certain city employees some education on the issue of human trafficking. Councillor Matt Wally wants a report on the structural integrity of the stone walls around Newton Hill. The way this is what I think it means. The way that he describes this wall, it's like a wall that cannot exist. So there's maybe some sort of Cthulhu non-Euclidean, like death dimension wall that we have in Worcester. Brendan, you know more about the west side than me. Just such a
I don't know more about masonry than you do, so I can't go too deep in this.
You know more about masonry than me because I know nothing about masonry.
What I can tell you, though, do you follow the Worcester Lampoon website?
I don't.
So they wrote, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the Worcester Lampoon. And they wrote a piece earlier this week, or at the end of last week, about Councillor Wally being seen getting into a screaming match with this wall in the Newton Square area. Which I think they did a really good job of summing up, not necessarily the absurdity of the focus on this wall, but that nobody really has any idea what is being discussed here. I'm going to guess this is the wall over by Doherty Memorial High School.
I think it's described as being a wall
on the Highland Street
on the Highland Street side between Newton Square and Park Avenue.
Between Newton Square and Park
Right, which again is a geometry puzzle that you cannot solve.
Yeah. Now, if you told me it was between Doherty and Newton Square, then there is a wall that looked at one point in time like it was starting to crumble a little bit. There is another wall on the other side of it. It would be easier.
There is nothing between Newton Square and Park Avenue.
Well,
this is like
there's a high school and there's a wall on each side of the high school. So it's which wall are you talking about?
I don't know. Anyway, but so you're also unaware of anything about this wall specifics around.
All I know is I hope this wall gets fixed. Like, this is important.
I mean, it seems like it's always been a wall that's in really good shape, and it always looks fine to me. And I'm very excited that we have
Councillor Wally, tear down this wall.
On the boards and commissions side, as part of her effort to deal with the lack of applicants for certain boards, Councillor Lukes would like the manager to allow people to serve on multiple boards and commissions within reason. That sounds reasonable to me.
Perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
Define reason, Mike.
I mean, within reason
Please
is
don't
like.
define reason.
I mean, I can tell you exactly. I mean, I don't even need to read the thing. I can tell you exactly what it is, which is that as long as there's no conflicts of interest,
Yeah.
and as long as like you have a reasonable attendance on whatever boards and commissions you're on already. So if you're if you're already like playing hooky from your existing boards and commissions, that would be a reason to turn you down from a new one.
I feel like we get a lot of orders, at least once a year. We get a flurry of orders that come up around boards and commissions. At some point in time, I think it would be much more healthy for the city council or the Citizens Advisory Council to take a giant step back and actually take a more holistic view as to why nobody wants to serve on boards and commissions in the city anymore. Like there's a
Did
small,
people used to want to?
they used to be pretty competitive to get on them, yeah. But that was also the time where like council races were like super competitive, and you would have. I think the further we've gotten into the sort of the Plan E by miracle sort of shift in the charter, the way it's structured now, the further away we've gotten from the sort of competitiveness both on the elected side and the appointee side. But yeah, a lot of those commissions used to be viewed as that was your stepping stone to be a city councilor or an elected official.
Like, oh, I was on the library board.
Exactly,
Oh,
that's
I
the
was
big
in-
one too. Like, there's
Yeah.
no way you could be a city councilor or a mayor unless you serve time on the library board.
And
because
now
there's
it's
a budget
like,
attached to it.
now they're just like, please, would somebody be on the
Please,
library
somebody
board?
just come to the
Are you
library.
alive? Have you not died that long ago? Then could you still be on the library board?
But it's also, it's probably indicative too of taking a look at the way our local government is structured. There are probably aspects of it that just don't make any sense to anybody anymore.
But, I do feel like the boards and commissions, I mean, I am never going to serve on a board and commission, but I always encourage people who I know to try out for it. And people sometimes too, I think people are surprised. Do you think that there's maybe just some social disconnect that maybe when people, back in the day, people heard a lot more about boards and commissions around the dinner table?
That's probably part of it, because I would guess that, especially if you're looking at a younger demographic that isn't plugged into affairs of City Hall, be it politics or whatnot, chances are good they're not getting the message every quarter as to what vacancies exist on. Chris, how many openings are there currently on the Cable Commission?
I'm not sure at all.
Exactly.
Probably all
but
of them.
I was at the Happiness Pony book release. I was asked to be on the like cemetery board or something.
The Hope Cemetery Commission, probably.
Yeah. And
But you didn't do that.
well, that was the first time I even knew that something like that existed.
And you're also on the road a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
And
hard
I have
to.
to imagine that's kind of weird to be hanging out in an ice cream shop and a complete stranger comes up and starts pitching you about spending more time in a cemetery. Like that isn't necessarily the greatest opener.
Or just in a house talking about a cemetery. I don't know where they really meet up, but
I just want to say that's some hustle though, like getting people, just strangers at the ice cream shop, trying to get them to be on the cemetery commission.
Maybe that's the approach the city council should take.
Well, anyways, Councillor Russell requests that the city expedite hearings for small developments, whether for housing or for small businesses. This is one of these things where I don't really understand enough about the permitting process around this stuff. Like, how much more can we expedite these than we can? Probably more. I'm sure that Councillor Russell knows this as a realtor. I don't know.
I'm not going to pretend to know anything about this one.
I don't know. Do you want Christian? You want to pretend to know something about it?
nope.
Nope. Okay. All right. This is great. This is like a quiz show where you don't have to get the right answers. I love that. Homelessness. The city manager proposes a series of hearings this spring and summer about what we need to do to address homelessness in Worcester, with an emphasis on the housing first model. And I want to actually read part of his letter to the council because I think it's very interesting. He says, to date, we still have over 60 chronically homeless adults living in our streets and shelter, and that number seems to be growing. Recent results from our local point-in-time count indicate that chronic homelessness increased 46% from 2016 to 2017, and unsheltered or street homelessness increased 96%. I'm deeply troubled by these trends. After the decade of hard work our community has committed since 2007 to end chronic homelessness in the past. And he points out that... He points out that he served on Worcester's task force on homelessness, which established the 2007 plan to end homelessness in Worcester and offered a new approach away from the failed 20 more years of a philosophy centered on emergency shelter toward rapid rehousing and housing first. At that time, with funding from the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts, Community Health Link led a collaborative of local organizations in planning the Home Again initiative. Home Again put housing first into practice and ultimately housed 108 chronically homeless individuals in scattered and clustered sites around our city over the course of 5 years. In 2011, the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness recognized Worcester as the first city of its size to effectively end chronic adult homelessness. And so the idea is that in the they're going to have a task force, and then in the spring and the summer they're going to have 5 to 6 full group meetings, 2 public forums, and the formulation of 3 subcommittees to facilitate a gathering of specific information regarding data, housing, and support services. Basically, I guess to try to figure out why it is that we seem to be slipping backwards. And he says, I look forward to your support in reinvigorating our efforts to sustain a level of, quote, functional zero among our adult chronic homeless population in Worcester and continue to serve all homeless constituencies across our community. So there you go. I don't know. That sounds okay to me.
No, totally. I mean, we've talked about this a number of times in past shows going back years. I mean, it always struck me as odd that we didn't put more of an emphasis on the housing first model in the city. That, you know, we can, I think you ask anybody working in social services, you can come up with anything to focus on between being homeless and having a home as being like a cause or something that's exacerbating chronic homelessness, whether it be addiction, employment, there's a million things there, right? But at the end of the day, if we're talking about chronic homelessness, like the big outstanding issue is dude needs a house. So like you figure that part out in some form, then you can figure out all the gray area in between homelessness and housing.
And that's what when they talk about housing first, that's what they mean.
Yeah.
Dude needs a house. Like we are going to bend over backwards to try to get you some kind of housing, no matter what other kinds of issues you have, no matter what kinds of problems you might have being a tenant in that housing, that you being housed is going to solve so many problems.
Across the city, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is, you know, even if it's a relatively small, relative being a relative term, right? I mean, a relatively small segment of the population that is suffering.
I got ketchup on my sweatshirt today when I was eating my breakfast, but
That's no big deal.
yeah,
That's no big
it's
deal.
not going to show up on the cameras.
What'd you have for breakfast that involved ketchup?
Well, I went to the Dunkies next to my house, and I got the 2 for $2 wake up egg wrap thing. Yeah.
I think mostly I want to talk to you about game theory, but first let's talk about the rock and roll thing
Okay.
because it's a very exciting topic.
Yeah.
So you have been for a long time in a band called the Hotelier,
Yep.
and you guys travel around the world playing music
Mm-hmm.
and like sort of just like rock and roll music.
Yeah. It's like a dramatic rock, emotional music is the idea.
Right. There's so many subgenres I don't even know.
Yeah.
I can't even follow these things about metalcore or emo or whatever the
Yeah.
hell it might be. Because I was just going on Spotify to make sure that I had listened to the latest stuff, and it was telling me that you guys were going on tour. You guys are going to play in San Francisco next week.
Yeah.
So you're fixing to head out on tour again quite soon.
Yeah. Thursday night we start a drive across the country.
Nice.
Are you from Worcester, Richmond?
I grew up in Charlton.
We should. That's actually the first question I should have said, which is just to clarify. Even though your last name is Holden,
Yeah.
you're not from Holden.
Not from Holden.
Very important. Good for you.
Yeah.
So you're really from Charleston.
Yeah. Grew up in Charlton.
And so I'm just curious to know, so every time I go outside of Worcester and travel and then come back to Worcester, or any place that I've lived, you see it with fresh eyes, you see new things.
Mm-hmm.
And you are out there traveling way more than me and then coming back to Worcester. I'm just curious, what do you notice about Worcester versus everywhere else when you come back?
Yeah. There's a lot of friends here mostly. There's a lot of people that I get to talk to and hang out with and just see, and it's nice. Something about Worcester that I think is key is that sort of, it seems like in Worcester people really know how to make their own fun. That's like my biggest thought about the city is like the people that move to Worcester are not people who are like, my life needs meaning, I need to move to the city. And then if they're doing that, they're probably going to choose Boston because Boston's like a flashier city. It makes more sense for someone who's having an existential crisis and trying to move to the city. But Worcester in particular seems like it's like the people that move here are a little bit more utilitarian and sort of have an idea about what they want to do, and it just makes more sense to live in a city while they're doing it. At least for like the subcultural scene, and especially with like music. So a lot of the stuff that is done, a lot of the events that happen, a lot of the art that is made is a little bit more, I guess, outsider art in a way, and that's kind of appealing to me, it's appealing to me to like consume as a viewer more, because I don't necessarily know that I make outsider art myself, but there's just a vibe that feels a little bit more like I'm surrounded by people who are masters of their craft in Worcester. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I wonder how much of that is a result of just the history of Worcester. How much of a result of that is just that, like, if you took any group of 180,000 people and plopped them down in central Massachusetts, they would develop that culture, and how much of that is, like, weird public policy decisions?
Are you saying that Worcester is like the Shakespeare being written by monkeys at the typewriter in a long enough time frame? So all it takes is 180,000 people, put them in a small enough space, and eventually they'll make Worcester.
No, I just am always curious. I mean, I know that, yeah, I mean, like, there are certain things, for example, that I hear people from Providence say, oh, I wish we had this in the way that Worcester does. Oh, I wish we had, housing collectives in the way that Worcester does. Or, a certain kind of underground music scene in the way that Worcester does. And the reason that you don't have it in certain places that want to have it is because the city cracks down on it, and Worcester has other law enforcement priorities. And Worcester could destroy a scene like that in no time, but the city's just like, we don't care.
You know what I think some of that, I would totally love to hear your thoughts on this. I think there's probably a little bit of an age difference in some capacity here too. Like, my experience back in the late 80s, early 90s was, even as a kid, like, you had small, weird sort of burgeoning little music scenes that weren't represented anywhere else in the city, because the city was very much, not just neighborhood based, but was very much residential. I feel like there is something that, like, when you get very dense, like Boston or Providence, you are more likely to see law enforcement or city crackdowns on things that are observed as being too public and too out of the norm for the general public to allow them to go on. But when you're growing up in, like, any neighborhood in Worcester that's kind of on the outskirts of the city, you might as well be in one of the suburbs. Like, you might as well be in Charlton. Like, you're never going to see cops anywhere. You're never going to bother anybody. So your buddies, like, my friends were making, like, our own hip hop beats with, like, 3 different cassette players and, like, recording, doing our own sampling and whatnot, and putting on shows and what have you. Mm-hmm. Before we even realized there was even a city on the other side of Park Avenue. Like, we were creating our own universe.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's necessarily what I see. I think well, when I look at, like, something like Boston has, like, a scene that is, like, constantly revolving. Like, people are revolving in and out, and part of that is because, like, Boston is for young people and, like, artists and creators, it's, like, so centered around the colleges, and when you're not going to the colleges, it actually becomes pretty like, hard to even live in Boston, just because of the rent, just because of, like, how it just costs a lot to just get around the city. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not very friendly to people to stay there. So, like, a lot of the people that live in Boston just end up moving out of Boston when they're done with college, mm-hmm. And there's not really an actual city infrastructure to support artists in that city. And I'm not really sure too much about Providence.
Me neither.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. So I think in general that's what something like Boston struggles with, is, like, it doesn't. When I go to shows in Boston, it doesn't feel like there's a community of people that know each other. It seems like this person came and brought their friends, and this person came and brought their friends, and this person came with their friend, and that, like, no one's interacting in this way. That, like, that happens more in Worcester in terms of, like, interaction between people and groups, and sort of feeling more cohesive when events happen between audience members.
When you view Worcester now, do you think that our local music scene is, if we consider it in ebbs and flows, would you say it's in a peak or a valley or somewhere?
Probably a valley. I think, there's not so much in the way of art projects that are being done in terms of music right now in Worcester, in the way that I've seen it in the past. And that could be just like a sort of a generational bubble, sort of, and it could be, it could be that.
I have that same impression, and I always just wonder if it's just, am I just not as people just don't invite me to things anymore, or my taste has gotten weird. And you saying that, exactly, like you saying that you see a little bit of this too makes me think that maybe it is a bit more, besides just our own personal situation.
Yeah, no, I think that there was, like, when I sort of came into it, there was lots of bands and there was lots of people making music, and I think that something I've noticed is I was at Loving Hut last night with 2 of my housemates, and there were some, like, young alternative looking kids that like, I mean, look at college kids, and I was just like, how come there aren't young people at the Starship anymore? Like, there's really like when I was coming to the Starship, there's I mean, you guys were in college, but it was like there was tons of like stuff involving young kids coming to the Starship, and even when it was on Oliver Street, there's like shows there all the time.
We shouldn't talk about the locations of things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Anyway, let's say that there. I mean, the fact that it wasn't Oliver Street is fine. Where it could be today doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you're right. Just saying, like, why is this scene not happening?
Mm-hmm. And it seems like there's just like I think of it as like a siphoning, like a siphon pump, and it's just like you have to keep a steady flow of like this like intergenerational stream of artists and alts and stuff, and then like if there's like a bubble where there's like a disconnect between the people who are in the infrastructure and the people that can be pulled into the infrastructure, then there's going to be a bubble, and you have to find a way to like reconnect that stream.
Somebody actually has to make it happen in a way that they didn't have to 18 months ago because it was just happening more naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready to go to another break? All right, we are going to another break. We will be right back after these important messages with 508, a show about Worcester.
Chris, what do you think the relationship is between like the house scene and like actual live music venues in the city, like licensed venues? That was one of the things that when I was doing shows in Worcester, it was always on the club side of things, and like that was early aughts. So it always seemed like there was bands that would like want to keep playing local and whatnot, but like maybe they just got sick of collectives and whatnot, so they. And there weren't as many back then either. I don't think either, or more were coming online. Like a lot of them would find their way into the clubs and whatnot. And
yeah, I think Ralph's and what's the other one that's on?
Back to being the Cove. And I used to be the Lucky Dog, but
okay. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been to the Cove, but I see shows happen at Ralph's, and I see them happen at what's the one in Kelly Square that I can't think of right now.
Hotelier.
The Vern. Yeah, I think shows happen there. But like,
there's still tons of shows. But I'm really curious what the relationship is between like, again, when I was growing up, it was always like you would play for like you would do stuff for your friends, then you would do stuff like house parties, regardless of whether that house party was one of the collectives the city has or like actual house parties, and then eventually you graduate into like doing clubs and whatnot. And for us, it was then going off to Boston and then going down to New York a couple times and saying, okay, this isn't our thing, we're done. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general parties revolve less around bands now than they might have like a couple of years ago. I think a lot of parties are just like the entertainment in itself is just the like maybe goofiness of the party or something.
We're ready to come back in. We'll give it a minute.
I think that's what we need. Is we need bands to just start crashing other people's parties. And reminding people that live music is awesome.
Yeah.
So like just random bands, like you keep ears to the ground and like random college parties, and just like actually get it fully out. Maybe it's just in the back of a box truck. And
could I suggest a song to play?
Yes.
Could you play "Soft Animal" by us?
Yeah. Cool. Am I going to find that right on here?
You could just search "Hotelier Soft Animal" on YouTube.
Oh, there it is. There's a little preview.
Hank, I'm ready when you're ready.
Yeah.
This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eye and dark within. This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eye and dark within. This is 508, a show about Worcester. I'm Mike Benedetti here with Brendan Milliken.
how's it going?
And Christian Holden.
Hello.
And that was your band, the Hotelier, just then playing the song
Soft Animal.
Soft Animal.
Yeah.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you one more thing about music before we start talking about youth and gambling.
Okay.
How do people listen to your music these days?
Probably through Spotify or the various offshoots. I have Tidal because I got it for free. I got a year subscription for free. Thank you very much, Jay-Z.
Nice.
Yeah, but probably through Spotify. I think a lot of people have Spotify these days because it's a steal.
It is a steal. It works great. As a consumer, it's super great.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it in the same way that everybody else does because, like, I think that a lot of the time musicians feeling entitled to, like, the income that they might have thought to expect in a time where the music industry really dominated the actual like income aspect of it. Like musicians were making a lot of money, and I think that like I'm having a lot of fun, and a lot of people will find ways to stream my music for free anyway. So I might as well just get paid pennies every time they stream instead of not at all. And yeah. But
Cool. I'll continue to listen to you guys on Spotify. I know that I have your blessing.
Cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about. I want to talk to you about gambling for a while. I don't really even know where to start about gambling. We're talking about card playing mostly.
Yeah,
right?
mostly, but also what playing poker specifically is what I've been doing, and also I guess what I've been told is that I've been running a mini hedge fund for friends of mine, which I didn't really understand as that. I thought of it just as like a way to get my friends into investing in crypto, but that was like another.
You know, you're just really on fire as far as like confessing possibly criminally whatever activity over the radio today, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know.
Go all in. Just go all in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could. I mean, it doesn't matter.
How do you? So this actually is something that this is something which we finally started doing last week after me wanting to do this for years, which is to talk about the price of Brent crude oil every week on the show.
Okay.
And also we'll talk about the price of Bitcoin. So this week Brent crude is at $62 a barrel. That's down about 10% from last week's show when it was at 67. And Bitcoin this week is 8,500 give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And last week it was about 7,000 give or take. So we're up about 12%.
Mm-hmm.
Does that match your
Yes.
your calculations?
Yep.
I mean, so how do you think out the? I mean, do you see whenever you're analyzing, say, the game of poker, or thinking about what's the right way to play the game of poker, do you think there's a lot of overlap between that and the game of helping your friends invest in Bitcoin, or managing the risks thereof?
I guess I mean that's how I interpret them as both being gambling. Is like you're entering this situation where there's an amount of risk, but by you taking on this risk and analyzing it properly, you are able to gain a reward that is not available to other people who are not entering into the game. And that's sort of what I think of as gambling. Is like basically, I mean, obviously there's gambling in which you just lose and you can't win, but more it's just like to be a professional gambler, you would have to be able to properly assess risk and reward in a way that allows you to profit or win or gain a experience that is not otherwise available.
And so whenever you're like, my understanding is that like poker is what I don't know if a solved game is the right word for it, but like, I mean, like but you more or less know, like, based on what's gone down in the hand so far, what the chances are of your hand being the winning hand or not, right?
Yeah. I mean, usually only because I feel like, I mean, if I was playing against very good opponents, it would be much harder for me to be able to understand that. But because the casino is not filled with very good opponents, I often feel like I have a pretty good idea of whether my hand is good or not.
That if you were playing against other good opponents, there would be a lot more of weird bluffing or erratic betting or whatever signaling on their part that would make it a much more difficult thing for you to try to find the signal among the noise.
Yeah, sort of. It's like the way that it works is like you have a range of hands that, like, as you can't see the person's cards, so they have a range of hands. You have like this idea about all of the possible hands that they can hold, and sometimes against bad opponents, they'll take an action that they can only take with a specific strength of hand.
Okay.
So you're just like, okay, they're in this range of hands that has this exact strength, and thus I know exactly where my hand is in this calculation. And basically, if it's lower than that, I can assess like, okay, does this range of hands fold if I just go hard on them? Or if it's like not, then it's just like, okay, well then I just need to go for value, and I just need to get them to call my bets because I know that my hand is best. But against good opponents, it's just going to be like me being able to assess where they're at in their range of hands and what their hand strength is, because they're going to have protected actions. It'll just be harder. And
what do you mean protected actions?
Protected actions just basically being like, this person's taking this action, but it corresponds to a wider range of hands that they can have, as opposed to just like this medium strength hand or something. Okay. It'll be like, I have strong hands and I have really weak hands, or like I have a lot of hands and I'm not telling you, like I could have like a really strong hand that I'm just telling you that I have a lot of hands right now, and you have to like make a guess as to whether it's, it's harder to make correct decisions against a protected range, because there can just be like really strong hands that you just run into and then they win or something like that.
And so whenever you're playing poker against people, you're really thinking about optimizing things financially also, and not like emotionally. Like you've been playing long enough that like the chance of you like whatever feeling terrible for days because you played poorly, or because you is like less of a risk because you've just learned how to manage that over time.
Right. Yeah. Like even when I win, I am just like, okay, it's like I never jump for joy, because I know that if I were to celebrate when I win, it would mean that I would have to feel really bad when I lose.
And that's not a good trade-off.
Yeah, no.
So whenever you're playing, thinking about risk and reward in terms of like buying Bitcoin, how do you think there's risk and reward on something like that?
I guess, I'm in this situation where, as I was describing to you earlier, I never went to college. So I never put tens of thousands of dollars into something that I had to eventually work off.
Right.
And
so you were never in that kind of debt.
Yeah, so I was never in that kind of debt, which I feel lucky in general to have. And I also have like, a band that makes me an income, and then like I can make some income from poker. So it's just like I have these sources of income, and I am just sort of thinking like, well, I could put a significant portion of my income into this opportunity that I do feel, and a lot of really smart people like have ideas about will be like a very popular thing, and I'm behind the sort of the concept of it as a utility in the world. Like I'm into cryptocurrency existing, so it's just like I could put a significant portion of my net worth into this thing, and if it takes off, then great, and I'll have a lot of opportunities that come from that. I will be able to like provide a lot of opportunities to friends who didn't get involved but have people who have like really great ideas about things but don't have the capital to sort of start about certain projects, which is a lot of my friends and a lot of people that are sort of into the alternative scene. Is just like they have a lot of great ideas but not necessarily the ability to start them. So like I have a lot of opportunities to gain from investing and possibly like increasing the amount of money that I have from it, or I lose this portion of my net worth and I'm kind of still fine.
Right. You're a young guy, you have other income streams.
Right.
You're not going to go below zero on your cryptocurrency investment.
Yeah, and I have, I have a house with some friends. Like I have a lot of friends who can support me when I need it. I have a family that can support me when I need it. My bottom is really low, and that's sort of something that I think about when I'm like, where my bottom is like supported, I guess. So it's just like there's not too much to risk, and there is a lot that I can possibly gain in terms of opportunities in my lifetime from investing in cryptocurrencies.
Yeah. How do you think about, so do you feel like you have to manage your emotional investment in that? Is that tricky or?
It was a tricky thing at the beginning, and it was trickier when I was like helping my friends invest it as well.
That's really what I wanted to ask about, which is like the game of, so when we're talking about the game of this or the management of this, like I feel like if somebody says to me like, hey, I want to invest in cryptocurrency, what's the right strategy? First of all, I'm like, why are you even asking me? So I'm not the right person to ask, but I feel like investment-wise, the correct strategy for investing in anything is somewhat unknown.
Yeah, I mean,
But emotion-wise, I think the correct strategy is very frequently known, which is, for example, don't invest more than you can afford to lose.
Yeah.
It's like a emotionally healthy way to do it.
I'm pretty sure that you and I found an old chat from 2012 where we had that very brief conversation and both just kind of walked away from it because neither of us really knew enough about Bitcoin to do anything with it, and we probably wouldn't be sitting here at a radio station had we dumped a significant amount of money into it at that time. But we won't revisit that history right now.
Well, I mean, I just want to say, like, Brendan now bringing up his own personal whatever regrets and bad vibes around these opportunities. Like, I think that this is a place where, like, the science of psychology and science of decision making really helps us in that it helps us to understand, like, how loss aversion works, how guilt works. I really tell anybody who's like worrying to me, like, I feel bad having invested in Bitcoin or whatever. This is something I was getting a lot more of in November and December than I am in January, February, of course. It's just to say, like, just put $50 in it, dude.
Yeah.
Like, put $50 in it and see how your daily angst goes up or goes down. And it probably goes down because now whenever Bitcoin doubles, you're like, great, I just made $50. Rather than being like, curses, I lost my chance of being a billionaire.
And I guess that's what I mean in the sense of, like, where your bottom is. Like, I have friends that, like, don't have, like, good relationships with their family that, like, can support them, or don't necessarily feel like they have the like greatest, like,
social solidarity, social support net.
Exactly. And I think that for them it's just like I can't put like all my money into this thing and, like, hope that it works out. And that's really real. And that's that's going to have an effect on your emotional state. But I think that they're sort of, for each person, the best investment strategy is going to be different based on their skill set. Like the best investment strategy is always going to be being the best day trader. Like, if you can be the best day trader, you're going to make the most amount of money. But if your skill set can't be in day trading and you can't sort of foresee what the market is going to do, like how it's going to waver, then you can't win that game. And then that's not the best investment strategy. And then the best investment strategy is just to like assess the value of this utility long term, and then make a decision about how much you want to invest long term and not touch it, because you're going to lose the game if you try to play day trading. But long term investment, if you just think that it's going to go up and trend upwards, then you will just win that.
Yeah. And again, that's also, I think, a recipe for emotional sanity.
Yeah.
Which is to say, like, I will not check my phone every 45 seconds.
Exactly.
I will not check Coinbase all day long to see what the price is, because then I'm just going to be getting highs and lows all the day long, and the lows are going to wear you down faster than the highs are going to build you up.
But if you're day trading, then you are checking,
You're
not checking
living
every-
the highs and the lows.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not checking your phone. You're actually checking every millisecond, right? I mean, if you're using some sort of high frequency strategy, you're doing the opposite of what you're saying.
Hopefully, if you're day trading, you are a high frequency trading
That's what I'm
algorithm,
saying.
and
Yeah.
you're not a human being.
Yeah.
That would be the recipe for success there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I feel like we're this segment is almost over, and we only scratched the surface of this question of, like, game analysis.
Oh yeah.
Things.
Yeah.
Well, we do have one more segment coming up where we can talk more about that. Is that something that we want to talk about vis-a-vis youth mentoring, or that's its own thing? Do you think?
I think we could do that as well. I think we could sort of. I could sort of start my introduction to. I don't know. We'll get into it. We'll figure it out.
All right. Well, this is 508, a show about Worcester. You're listening to on Unity Radio 102.9 FM. You know that our number is 508-471-5265 if you want to disrupt the show, and you know that you do. We'll be back after these important messages. We haven't had any calls this week? Thank goodness.
We have yet to have a call this
Nothing wrong
week.
with that.
It's coming. You know it's coming.
Different people have been calling in the show trying to figure out different ways to confound and disrupt the show.
Really?
Last week, Justin Duffy called the show and just played this website called conferencecall.biz. It just simplifies a bunch of conference call crosstalk. People talking about, I have the receiver was right here. Wait, I can't hear you. Wait, what? Hello? And that was a great call to get.
If you're Going the day trading route, why cryptocurrencies and not traditional markets?
I mean, I don't do the day trading route when it comes to cryptocurrencies, so
Okay, you're set. You're holding.
yeah, I'm just a long-term holder. I don't have the skills to win at day trading, but my assessment is like the best way to do it would be the day
Yeah.
trade. You just
When
like-
you said that, that's what I was interpreting as you saying that's how you manage things was the day trading route.
No, I just my assessment is that I don't have the skills to do that, so I can't. And that's what I would. Like. If somebody is asking me, what's the best investment strategy, I'd be like, well, you clearly are at 101 level, so like this is what you can handle, I think. But yeah. And usually just probably like the most popular currencies. So I only have Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yeah.
Is it okay that we're recording this part?
Yeah.
Do you want this part on the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Good.
I worry about nothing when it comes to like me talking on the radio about like oh, I ran a mini hedge fund, it was fun, or
Yeah,
like I had money on Silk Road.
I know that experience of or maybe I just originally had that experience of at one point of like having some people and like wanting to do this project with some people and looking into the legality and realizing like this would be a hedge fund. None of us is a hedge fund manager. But I could take this course and pass this test and I could become a hedge fund manager. I would be the least hedge fund manager ever. If I could put that on my business card, that would be sweet. And it didn't end up happening. But I kind of secretly would love to be a hedge fund manager in that way.
Yeah, I was just like had a lot of money in crypto, and I was like, man, I want more money in crypto. And then I had friends that were afraid to invest, and then I was just like, here, give me your money, I'll invest it, I'll insure it. So if this gets lost, then I will cover it, and then I will take this percentage. And then they were like, all right, perfect. Like I would never invest this money if it wasn't for you. So like, let's do it. And they were happy about it, and I was happy about it. I didn't feel like I was taking advantage of them. It's just like this mutual agreement that worked for both of us.
That's nice. We're coming back for our last section.
But yeah, however you want to lead the rest of the conversation would be good. Would be fine.
Hi, everybody. You're still listening to 508, a show about Worcester. Worcester's voice of gambling news and views. I'm Mike Benedetti. This is Brendan Milligan.
How's it going?
And this is Christian Holden.
Hello.
Hi, Christian. How's it going?
It's going good.
I want to talk to you about mentoring young people, unschooling, how some of this analysis of games comes into play in that area.
Okay. Well, I don't know. It's a thing that I've sort of learned from being very now into competitive poker. Was just like really honing in on my problem solving skills and it just sort of like translates over really well. And what we were talking about in the hallway is like, yeah, I had been recently. It's been slowing down recently, but mentoring this kid who had recently quit school, and I met his mom at a party, and she was like, I've been looking for a mentor for my son, and I think you'd be great. And this was after me explaining to like a group of people around the fire that I want to teach, or I want to like give a presentation on professional gambling to teenagers.
Because you've been interested in schooling and alternative schooling for a long time. Like I've known you for a long time, not your whole life, but a long time, and I feel like that's always been the thing.
Yeah,
but I think about you even more than thinking about you as a musician, even though you've been serious about that for a long time, and definitely even more than you being a card player, is your interest in education.
Yeah, it's my long-term goal. My thought of what I want to be able to do in this world is I want to be able to facilitate young people being able to be in control of their own education and their own lives. And that was something that when I was in my very last year of high school, I started reading about, and it just totally like blew the lid off of everything that I knew about how people learn, and like what the best way to sort of like drive sort of like I guess libertarian sort of like
By the way, whenever I say we're Worcester's libertarian voice, that's kind of a joke. You don't have to.
Well, I mean libertarian in terms of like the classical like
Anarchism.
anarchism. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I want anarchism in children's lives from them being young kids, so that they can understand what it's like in the real world. A lot of people who talk about what it's like in the real world are actually just talking about what it was like for them in school. It's just like, yeah, stuff gets forced on you. Like that's just the way of the world. And sometimes it's just like, if kids just like grew up being like, hey, like I actually have control over my own environment around me. Like I have control over my own goals and what I do in my life. Then it could change just how people interact with the world. And that's sort of what I want to see. And that's what I think unschooling is important for, besides just like allowing kids to be happier. So yeah, my long-term goal is like, how do I help young people have more control over their education, and what sort of like unstructured or structured environments they need in order to do that. Because, you know, we're talking about a group of 180,000 kids, and them having diverse ways of how they learn and what their needs are, and it has to be a sort of dynamic structure that can support everybody, and sometimes that just means being unstructured and decentralized. And
What have you learned from having to break down games? How does that fed back into that? That having Well, so I'll tell you what you told me when I asked you this like 30 minutes ago, or an hour ago. Which is, I mean, you were just talking about, helping people figure out like, okay, here's where you are in your life. Here's where you want to be in your life. All right, let's think about risk reward. Let's think about step by step how this goes. Like, let's just think about this objectively, and let's think about this clear-headed.
Yeah, it's just like breaking. I mean, all problem solving eventually comes down to just a math equation, and the hardest part about solving a problem is understanding which variables
are the relevant variables.
Yeah, exactly, and what they are, what the actual quantity of that variable is. And if you can sort of be able to break that down, then you understand you just understand how to solve the equation. And that's all I think problem solving is, but in a little bit more abstract way. And so that's what I think my brain is doing when I am attempting to solve a problem for either a youth or in a game or in any sort of
on the road in front of 10,000 screaming fans.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
It's all the same.
Brendan, did you? I think we have time for like one more question.
Yeah, what's the outside of Vegas? What's your favorite non-Vegas poker city? Tory. Doesn't have to be in the U.S.
I mean, I liked San Francisco when I went there. Yeah, they have
Small casinos or like.
It was
private?
just a card room, yeah. And New Hampshire's pretty cool actually for their poker scene. They don't have casinos; they just have poker rooms.
In your touring life, are you like known for your gambling? Do you ever get invited to like private games and whatnot?
Yeah, people know that I play poker. Fans of my band know that I play poker, and
Do you hustle your fans for more than
No,
CDs and t-shirts?
No, that would be funny. I tried to do that with Pokemon. I tried to like battle in Pokemon, but no one ever took me up on it. Yeah.
Christian, thank you so much for being on the show. We have to wrap things up. This has been super fun. This has been 5 Way to Show About Worcester. Our email address is pieandcoffee@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you, Hank Stoltz, and we will talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.